Okay, hello. This is Snaku again with another tips and tricks video. Uh, this one will try to save some time with two of the weapons, go through them quickly, and then talk a little more in depth about the ones that may be a little more complex. Today is April 3rd, 2022, and the current salmon run rotation is NZap, Ballpoint Splatling, Tri-Slosher, and Tentabrella. So first off, with the NZap, it's a very straightforward weapon, one of the very beginner-friendly weapons. It looks like an old Nintendo NZap gun. And with this weapon, you get a lot of mobility and a lot of paint. It's very well known in ranked to be the go-to support weapon for ink armor. So it paints a whole bunch in a quick amount of time, and you have a lot of mobility with how much you move while you shoot. So it's very good for survival if you do get the NZap when you're in salmon for that wave. Your focus should be on making sure there's a decent amount of paint on the ground, as well as staying alive since you're so mobile and you can sneak out of tricky spots and help your teammates out. The damage is pretty standard, about the same as a splatter shot or a splash-o-matic. I don't remember the numbers exactly. So you'll have a decent kill time for most of the bosses. And yeah, it's just what we call an all-around weapon, where it's very good in general, but doesn't really excel in certain areas. I guess the mobility is where it excels, but in terms of like damage and range, it's all pretty decent. Not bad, but not like super great, incredible. But a very solid weapon to have in a salmon run rotation. The next weapon, which is also an armor weapon in ranked, is the Tri-Slosher. I'm gonna do Tri before Ballpoint. So Tri-Slosher is also a pretty mobile weapon. I think it swims faster than the NZap. So it's another weapon that's really good for survival. The range is pretty good, but not as long. So you want to keep that in mind when you are trying to get like steelheads or something. You may have to jump for them or be at a higher elevation. This weapon also paints really well. It has a fast swing, so you can get a lot of paint or do a lot of damage in a quick amount of time. So it's also very handy in salmon run and pretty much any comp. Just like other buckets, you can do falling damage with it, though since the range is so short, it won't go as far, so not as handy as the slosher. But you can still use it at times if there is a big cluster of, let's say, the normal salmon, the chum, cohawk, and small fry. You can take out a decent number of them just by swinging a little upward on it. I don't know if there are any additional bucket tricks that I need to talk about, because we already covered with the normal slosher. But yeah, you can keep that in mind. I guess the additional thing I can say is it's very useful on grillers with clearing out the small fry. So that, because with the NZap you would just have to hit every individual small fry one at a time. This can get a whole group. Though the damage zone isn't very consistent except for straight ahead. So also keep that in mind. The splashes out on the outside can be a little varied and random. So yeah, a good weapon, another survival weapon, but just not as much range as the NZap. And decent damage too, I think. Alright, so the next weapon we will talk about is... Let me see if I can find a suitable sub-weapon. I don't remember what sub... Oh, here. Is the Ballpoint Splatling. And this one might take a while to explain. So bear with me. Alright, so the Ballpoint Splatling is probably, or considered one of the best Splatlings in Salmon Run, but it's also one of the most complex and difficult to use. When it first came out, it was an amazing weapon in regards to PvP, but still amazing in Salmon Run. So there's two things that makes this weapon unique compared to the normal Splatlings. The first thing that's unique is it has both a short range mode and a long range mode. Now you can't completely control at will when you get short range or long range. It depends on how long you shoot. So the beginning of my charge shot is going to be short range, and then eventually it'll change to long range. And you can tell when it changes when you look at the reticle. So right now the reticle is pretty wide, but then once it changes to long range, it gets really small and focused. So from short to long. And there's not too much you can do about bringing it back to short unless you reset, or another thing that we'll talk about. The next unique thing to this Splatling compared to other Splatlings, except for the Nautilus, is that with other Splatlings, once you let go, the only way to stop or recharge your charge is to sink back in your ink. Otherwise, you just have to wait for the whole charge to go before you can start charging again. But with the Ballpoint and the Nautilus, at any point when you let go and are shooting your weapon, you can hold the charge button down again and recharge midway through your shot. So when I first was messing around with this weapon, I put a bunch of ink saver main on it, and with the short recharges that you can do, you can pretty much shoot forever with little breaks in your shots. So it's really, really useful in terms of that. The downside is you have to watch your ink tank. Now, another little thing that you need to know about interrupting your charge or recharging while you're shooting is that when you recharge a certain amount, your weapon will go back into short range mode, as you'll see with the reticle going back. And that depends on where you are in your circle charge. I'm not sure if we talked about the circle charge, so I'll talk about it briefly. So the circle charge is the circles you see filling up when you're charging in your reticle. So you see a circle going around clockwise, twice around the circle until it's fully charged. And that's how you know when your weapon's fully charged. For other Splatlings, that's when you know you have the maximum range, once the first circle is fully charged. What's unique about the Ballpoint is that after a certain amount of the first charge, I believe it's around half the circle, half the first circle, that's the amount of time you'll be in short range mode. So when you let go, you'll see the circles start to deplete counterclockwise, and once it gets to 6 o'clock, which is the bottom of the circle, the first time it'll go into long range mode, and then be in long range mode for the rest of that. So that's how you can kind of tell when you're interrupting your charge, if you're going to stay in short range or long range mode. So that's something to keep in mind, though that may be a little more advanced. But the main thing to know is that you do have a short range and a long range mode, and that's when it starts and finishes. Okay, so now we can kind of talk about the other things about Ballpoint, which make it really good. The short range mode is pretty much the equivalent to the mini Splatling with the range and the fire rate, I believe. The long range mode is almost the equivalent of a Hydra Splatling in terms of range, but not fire rate. But still, the range, it's such an incredibly flexible weapon where you can have really strong short range as well really long and strong long range too. So that's what makes this weapon good. It kind of has the best of both worlds, kind of like Fling's a roller. Alright, mobility wise, when you're moving and charging, you have really good mobility, but that's mostly when you're in the short range mode. So while you're firing in short range, your mobility is really good. Once you start going into long range, your mobility gets a little less, so you can't move around as much while you're shooting in the long range mode. So keep that in mind. In terms of paint output, I believe this is one of the better painting Splatlings, especially in short range mode, because you can paint like a ton of area close to you in a short amount of time, which is really handy and good for a Splatling. The long range mode is a very straight path, so it doesn't paint as well that way. So you won't do much painting there. I think that covers most of the mechanics. I'll probably remember something once I come back to it. So in regards to the actual tips and tricks to using it, learning how long your charge is and getting used to recharging is like the key thing for this weapon, so that you can shoot for long periods of time and not be stuck. So as I said, with painting with the short range mode, if you do little bursts of shots and charge between them, you can stay in short range and get a lot of turf painted down if you need to. For the long range mode, it's a little easier to keep the charge going since you have a lot more time. You just want to make sure that you don't hold down the charge for too long. You can get a lot done with just like gentle taps, or gentle presses, which is, I don't remember what other weapon I was describing with gentle presses, but just like holding the button down for a little, like half a second or quarter of a second, then pressing it again. That'll help you with the partial charges part of it. Another benefit to the partial charges is that you don't even need to hold the button down very long to get a lot of bullets out. So if you're like getting surrounded or a lot of chum or cohawks are getting close to you, you can just do that gentle press and do a lot of damage really quick so that you can get out of whatever situation you may be in. So you don't have to feel like you need to hold for a really long time and charge. So that's another reason why this weapon is really good. The partial charges, you can do them really shortly and still get a lot of output from them. Let me think if I can remember anything else. We got mobility, we got paint coverage, we got range, and the partial charges or the recharges. So I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about with the Ballpoint. So the biggest difficulty about it is learning about the partial charges and getting comfortable with the recharges. And I think when you have that down, it's just a matter of the other general things we talked about, like spacing between you and the bosses, being prepared with having your charges ready early, and stuff like that. I guess a bonus trick with this weapon is because its range is so long, if you ever get a mothership, especially since this rotation is on Bay, you can do what we call cheesing the mothership. It's when it comes down to suck on the basket to take the eggs away. You can use your long range mode and reach the enemies that are coming out with the eggs above the basket. So, like, just in case you didn't have a stingray, you could, or you wanted to save your stingray, you could use this to hit the top of the basket and get those eggs without using a special. But yeah, I think that will do it for the ballpoint. So, next we need to talk about, which also has a beacon sub, the Tentabrella. The Tentabrella is the newest and the trickiest Brella weapon to use. So if we haven't talked about Brella weapons already, they're essentially like the equivalent to shotguns, where their shots have multiple small pellets within them, and the further you are, the less pellets will hit the enemy, but the closer you are, the more likely that more pellets will hit. So closer is more guaranteed damage. With the Tentabrella, you have a pretty decent amount of range where all of your pellets can hit, or your full shot can hit. So that's what makes it really handy. What makes it difficult is your movement speed and the shot speed. So let me grab another Brella really quick. So let's just say the standard Splat Brella. Here's how fast you can shoot the Splat Brella. About that fast. And then here's how fast you can shoot the Tentabrella. So almost a 2-to-1, where for every 2 Splatbrella shots you can get 1 Tentabrella shot. There's also a little thing, it's hard to explain unless you're actually playing the weapon, but there's a bit of startup and end lag when it comes to shooting the weapon. So what that means is once you press the button, you won't shoot the shot immediately. There will be a little time before you shoot the shot. And afterwards, there's a lot of time where you can't go back into your ink or start doing another action. So let me take the Splatbrella once again. So, for example, I think Splatbrella also has the same amount of like start lag, but the end lag is completely contrasting. So pay attention as how long it takes for me to finish shooting my Brella shot and then go into my ink. So pretty soon after I shoot the Brella, I can go back into squid form or start doing something else like throwing a sub-weapon or something like that. But when you have the Tentabrella, look at how much time it takes. So this is what I mean by end lag. If it's not making much sense or not very clear, just try it out in the training room. And then you'll kind of see what you mean, or what I mean. So this is like kind of a weapon where you have to get the feel of it and get used to the speed and pace that you have to play. So that's something to keep in mind with the Tentabrella. I think it's considered a heavyweight weapon, so you want to be mindful of it being a little slower and not as nimble as 2 of the other weapons in this rotation. The tent shield, the oh-so forgotten tent shield, this can be very handy in a salmon run. And to activate the tent shield, if you do not know, or any Brella shields, after you shoot, or when you press down to shoot, you just hold down the button, and a little bit after the shield will come up, and after a certain amount of time the shield will deploy. Now it takes longer for the shield to deploy for the Splatbrella, but the Brella shield, I guess I do need to explain both of these at the same time, just for comparison. So for the Splatbrella Brella shield, the shield comes up quicker after you shoot, but it takes a really long time for it to deploy. I'll do it one more time. And for the Tentabrella, it takes a little longer for the shield to deploy, but it releases from the Brella like almost immediately. And one more time. So these are things you should definitely give a shot to see if to see how it feels and feel the difference. With the Tentabrella, you get this really wide amount of paint and the shield that protects you from most normal salmon enemies. So this painting is good because while it's painting and going across, you can literally do something else. You can keep shooting your weapon even when your shield is gone, but you won't have any protection for an amount of time. Another thing to look out for, which is for all Brella weapons, is when you don't have your shield or if your shield is broken, there will be a sound cue to let you know that you can use it again. And it's that sound cue. I'll do it one more time. And you'll also see there's a difference between having your shield on your weapon and after you deploy it. So on the weapon, it's like very skinny. It looks like a cane. But as soon as it's back, it's the full thing again. Another thing to keep in mind with your shield is that it uses a certain amount of ink from your ink tank. So let's say I completely empty my ink tank and I try to use the tent shield. There are times where I can still shoot, but if I don't have enough ink to actually deploy the shield, then it won't deploy. And it will use up your ink, I believe, if I remember correctly. So we'll do this much. Yeah, it'll just take away your ink. So be mindful about that, like after you throw a bomb and you might want to use your shield, make sure you have like a little more ink, just to be sure that you can actually have enough ink to deploy the shield. For in here you can see like the white amount of in your ink tank is the amount that it uses up. Okay, I think that explains how the shield works and how the Tentabrella works generally. Things to keep in mind when you're fighting enemies. There are two bosses that will destroy your shield instantly if it runs into them, and that is Scrappers and Steel Eels. So if your shield bumps into a Scrapper, it will just break instantly, and if it does break instantly, then you still have to wait that set period of time before you can deploy your shield again. It doesn't reduce the time at all. And steel eels, if any part of the head or any part of the body of the eel touches the Brella, it will break instantly. So those are enemies you kind of don't want to use the shield around. but it's very good for just clearing out like normal salmon. It can block steelhead bombs. If you have like nowhere to run and you just need to protect yourself, you can put your shield up. As long as you're on the opposite side of the bomb of the shield. And I think that's it for all I can think of for the Tentabrella. It's just a weapon that takes a lot of patience. You can't rush in too heavily into tight situations, so just be mindful of that. And as well, I employ and encourage you to use the shield more often, or practice using the shield, because it's a very useful tool that I don't think a lot of players utilize as much as they could, and it can help you get out of tricky situations. Okay, I think that's everything. So I will, we're gonna hit over 30 minutes for this video, so thank you for being patient and watching most of this through. As always, I'll add timestamps, but we'll do our demonstration game. I was playing a little bit earlier with some friends, so my rank is up a bit. And I don't think we did a demonstration on Ruiner's Bay, so we'll see how this goes. I feel like with many rotations I can guarantee a win, but with this not so much. Bay is probably my weakest map. Along with Arc, I mean in terms of freelance. Alright, so first we got the Tri-Slosher, and we got Low Tide. Actually, I think I have done one on Bay. I don't remember. So I'll keep an eye out. Looks like we're gonna push this, so I'll try to hit it. With the other two weapons, I probably wouldn't have gotten in as aggressive around so many normal salmon, but since I have so much mobility with the Tri-Slosher, I figured I would be okay. I can't do much about weather balloons, so we'll just have to deal with them. Let this guy jump. I'll leave the steelhead alone because I don't believe my teammates will be able to destroy it, so they'll have to come back. At least I hope so. I'll try to take care of this. Yeah, so the steelhead's still up, they gave up, so they're gonna come back. That's kind of a luring technique that I do. Just don't help them out very much. Get some hits on that. Clear stuff out. The skill is not on me. That's good. Two of my teammates are down, but we have quota, so I'm not gonna freak out. Yeah, if we took it out. I'm gonna try to get this stinger. That's it. Wants to get me. I'm actually gonna back up because I don't have enough space. That's totally okay. Because we had quota. Alright, so good start. Now we have the tent, and it's also a night wave, so I wonder what we're gonna get. Oh, we get Seeking. That's low. That's also low. It should be. Oh, it's over here. I put my tent shield out so that I won't get hit by the other enemies. Get another one. Oops, I didn't have enough ink. It's high. So my trick for seeking in freelance is, while everyone else is collecting the eggs, I start searching. Because as soon as there are no eggs to collect, your teammates will start opening random baskets again. So they'll handle the golden eggs, they'll get the glory of carrying the team with all the golden eggs, and you can just help do the seeking so that you can pass the wave. But we're in good shape. We have all the eggs we need, so I am not worried. Yeah, we have quota now. Depending on what they do, I'm probably not going to open anymore. If you don't know how seeking, or the best way to do syncing on this map, you open this grate and this grate down here. If they're both low, then it's on the far end of the ship. If they're both high, then it's up close to here. And then there's other variations that I can't explain. You'll just have to look at the guide on Salmon Lair. And we got Ballpoint, cool. So the last wave I used the tent to clear out the normal salmon when we're trying to seek the goldies. And that's very, very useful, so don't forget. Definitely don't forget about the shield when that's the case. So now we have the ballpoint. I'm going to use the short range mode for that eel and then the long range mode to get the stinger. My teammates are taking long walks on the beach, so I'll have to just be patient and wait. For the eels, I'm still using the short range mode because it has the faster bullet speed. For the steelhead, I'm going to use the long range mode. I'm also just going to use an inkjet here because I already see 2 stingers. And I'll come back sooner than later because we have a lot of eggs that we can collect. And I do have one more. For drizzlers, you can get it in about 2 short range bursts. That one looked like it was just 1, but I was already shooting it when I was floating down. But this one, almost 2. I didn't go for it fully because other stuff was coming at me. So now I'm just using the short range mode, just short charges, and pressing the button down so I can paint more. And yeah, that was really good. I'm glad we got 2 low tides. And the seeking wasn't too bad either. So nice demonstration wave. So that's going to be it for me. Hopefully that helped you out. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. And yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say. The ballpoint and the tent are very tricky, so definitely be patient with them. They take some time. Maybe mess around with them in the training room. Other than that, I will see you all the next time I make a tips and tricks video. But until then, bye bye.